All right, introductory algebra homework day 7. Starting out with the order of operations. The order of operations, you do inside the parentheses first so that you only have one number in the parentheses. Then you do exponents. You do multiplying and dividing together from left to right. And then you do adding and subtracting. Way back when I was in school, they said, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. My kids always say PEMDAS for the order of operations. So on the first problem here, if I'm following my order of operations, we don't have parentheses or exponents. We have to do any multiplying and dividing from left to right. Here we have a dividing, here we have a multiplying. So we're going to do those two things first. This 2 in front's just going to come down, plus, and then I'm going to put the answer of 36 divided by 6, which is 6. Then I have a plus sign, and I'm going to put the answer of 4 times 8, which is 32. So now I'm just going to add 2 plus 6 plus 32. 2 plus 6 is 8. 8 plus 32 is 40. So 40 would be my answer if I'm following my order of operations. Now your calculator does know the order of operations, so if you punch it in just like it is, 2 plus 36 divided by 6 plus 4 times 8 equals, should get 40 on your calculator. Of course, I want you just to check your answers with your calculator. You should try to do it on your paper first to see if you can get the same answer. So on the second one, following my order of operations. Again, I don't have parentheses or exponents. I'm looking for multiplying and dividing. Here's a multiplying, here's a dividing. So 3 times 5 is 15, minus 28 divided by 4 is 7, plus my 3. So 15 minus 7 is 8. 8 plus 3 should be 11. So again, if I grab my calculator, 3 times 5 minus 28 divided by 4 plus 3 equals, and I get 11 when I check my answer. So go ahead, try number 3 there while I move the board. Following your order of operations. Parentheses, exponent, multiplying and dividing, adding and subtracting. So, don't have parentheses or exponents. I'm going to do multiplying and dividing from left to right. Here's a dividing, here's a multiplying. So 4 plus 15 divided by 3 is 5, plus 2 times 10 is 20. So 4 plus 5 is 9, 9 plus 20 should give me 29 if I follow my order of operations. So again, if I check that, 4 plus 15 divided by 3 plus 2 times 10, I get 29. Number 4, 5, and 6, we're still going to follow the order of operations, but now they're throwing in the grouping symbols, the parentheses. Now here, brackets and parentheses count as the same thing. On your calculator, you do use the parentheses for a bracket, but just to differentiate when they type it up, they use a bracket. Well, you always want to start in the inside most set of parentheses. So I'm going to start here and do the 10 minus 2 first. 10 minus 2 is 8. So in my brackets, I have 4 plus 8 times 2, and then of course the divided by 5 is on the outside. I then simplify inside the brackets so that it's down to one number, but I have to follow my order of operations. I'm going to multiply before I do any adding, so I have to do the 8 times 2 first. So I'm going to get 4 plus 16 in my brackets. I then can do 4 plus 16, which is 20, and now it's down to one number. So 20 divided by 5 gives me 4 for my answer. Again, if I want to check that with my calculator, I'm going to use parentheses instead of brackets. So I'm going to hit parenthesis, 4 plus, and then parenthesis, 10 minus 2. I'm going to close the parenthesis, times 2, close the parenthesis again, divided by my 5, and when I hit equals, I should get 4 on my calculator, which I do. Number 5, again following my order of operations. Parentheses, exponents, multiplying and dividing from left to right, adding and subtracting from left to right. I want to start in my innermost parentheses, so I'm going to start right here with the 11 plus 29. Need a little more space on that one. 11 plus 29 would give me 40, so I have 40 divided by 8 plus 2, and that 2 times is in front. Following my order of operations, inside the grouping symbols, I have to do the division before I do the addition. So 40 divided by 8 is 5. I then have 5 plus 2 in there. 5 plus 2 is 7. So 2 times 7 is my problem, which gives me an answer of 14. So again, if I double check that with my calculator, 2 times, I'm going to use a parenthesis and then a second parenthesis, plus 29. Oops, I better do that right. Clear that again. 2 times parenthesis and then another parenthesis, 11 plus 29, close my parenthesis, divided by 8 plus 2, close my parenthesis, and I do get 14. So number 6, when I'm evaluating that one, go ahead, try that on your paper. And while you try that on your paper, I'm going to do a little adjusting with my paper. So following my order of operations on number 6, I'm starting with my innermost parentheses. 12 minus 9 is 3. So in the brackets, I've got 2 plus 2 times 3. Again, following my order of operations inside those brackets, I have to do the multiplying before I do the adding. 2 times 3 is 6. So I have 2 plus 6, and 2 plus 6 is 8. So I have 40 divided by 8. Bring down the rest of my work. 40 divided by 8, going to give me 5 for my answer. So again, if I check that with my calculator, 40 divided by parenthesis, 2 plus 2 times parenthesis, 12 minus 9, close my parenthesis again, hit equals, and I get 5. 7, 8, and 9 are still following the order of operations. This time, this one doesn't have parentheses, but it does have an exponent. So, I have to do the exponent first. 4 squared. 4 times 4 is 16. So I have 4 plus 16 divided by 2. Following my order of operations, I have to do multiplying and dividing next. So I'm going to divide. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So now I have 4 plus 8, which gives me 12. Again, if I check it with my calculator, I'm going to do 4 plus 4 squared, that's the one with the little x squared, divided by 2 equals 12. So on your calculator, you have right next to there's a fraction button, the square root button, then the x squared button. To square something, you can hit the squared button. Number 8, following our order of operations. This time, we have parentheses. We're going to simplify inside the parentheses first. So 4 minus 2 is 2. So we have 2 to the 5th divided by 4. We're then going to do our exponents. 2 to the 5th. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 2, 32. So we get 32 divided by 4. 32 divided by 4, going to give me 8. On my calculator, I'm going to put parentheses, 4 minus 2, close my parentheses, and then to do 2 to the 5th power, you're going to use the caret key. So I have 4 minus 2 caret 5 divided by 4. So the caret key will do any exponent, even the squaring and cubing we have shortcut buttons for. But if I have something other than squaring and cubing, we do caret 5 divided by 4. And again, I get my answer, which is 8. I'm going to go ahead and let you do number 9. Fix my spacing on my paper. So again, if I follow my order of operations, I'm going to do parentheses, exponents, multiplying and dividing from left to right, adding and subtracting from left to right. So, don't have parentheses, I'm going to do my exponents. I'm going to take 2 to the 4th power. So, 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16. So 2 to the 4th power is 16. I have 48 minus 16 times 2. Following my order of operations, I have to do the 16 times 2 because I have to multiply before I add and subtract. So 16 times 2 is 32. I now have 48 minus 32. 48 minus 32 gives me 16. Again, if I check that with my calculator, 48 minus 2 caret 4, 2 to the 4th power, 2 caret 4 times 2. And I get 16. Ten, 11, 12, I'm using my order of operations to simplify things with fractions. My order of operations is still the same. Parentheses, exponents, multiplying and dividing from left to right, adding and subtracting from left to right. So in this case, I have to do my multiplying first. I can't reduce the 1 with the 6 or the 5 with the 4, so I'm just going to multiply across the top and the bottom and get 5 24ths. I have 7/8 in front, so now my problem is to do 7/8 plus 5 24ths. In order to do that, I have to find my common denominator when I add and subtract. My common denominator happens to be 24. I like to just make one big fraction instead of 2 separate fractions. 8 divides into 24 3 times. 3 times 7 is 21. Plus 24 goes into 24 one time. 1 times 5 is going to keep that 5 24ths. So now I'm just going to add. 21 plus 5 is 26 24ths. Now in here it tells us to write our answer in simplest form. Doesn't necessarily mean they want the mixed number. It just means they want you to reduce this down. Since these are both even, I can divide by 2. Half of 26 is 13. Half of 24 is 12. So 13 twelfths would be my answer in simplest form. If I want to check my answer, again, just using the fraction button, that's the one with the ABC over here, right down here on the left-hand side. So I would do 7 fraction 8ths plus 1 fraction 4 times 5 fraction 6 equals. Now my calculator is going to give me the mixed number, and to change it from the mixed number to the improper fraction, we hit the shift button, which is way on top, and then the fraction button, and shift and the fraction changes your fraction to 13 twelfths, which is what we want. So instead of the mixed number, we want the improper fraction. Number 11, following my order of operations, I have to do inside the parentheses first. So I'm going to do the addition first because it's inside the parentheses. I have to have a common denominator, which in this case is going to be 30. 6 goes into 30 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25, plus 5 goes into 30 6 times. 1 times 6 is 6. Should put my time sign there. I was going to put equals, but I'm just going to go down. 25 plus 6 is 31 over 30. We then have to times that by 3/4, so I'm going to bring that down. I'm going to rewrite it over here, since my writing's kind of small. 31/30 times 3/4. I'm multiplying, so I can reduce. Can't reduce the 31 with the 4, but I can reduce the 3 with the 30. 3 goes into here once and into here 10 times. So 31 times 1 is 31, and 10 times 4 is 40. So I get 31 over 40. Again, if I'm going to check that with my calculator, just like it looks, parentheses, 5 fraction 6 plus 1 fraction 5, close my parenthesis, times 3 fraction 4 equals 31 over 40. This one's a proper fraction, so it is in the form that we want. Go ahead, do number 12 there while I move the board. So number 12, if I'm following my order of operations, since there are no parentheses, I have to do the multiplying before I do my adding and subtracting. So, can't reduce the 3 with the 2, can't reduce the 1 with the 8, so I'm going to take 1 times 3, which is 3, 8 times 2, which is 16. So I have 3/4 minus 3/16. Now I'm going to do my subtracting, so I have to have a common denominator. Since 4 goes into 16, 16 would be my common denominator. 4 goes into 16 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. Minus 16 goes into 16 one time. 3 times 1, still 3. So I have 12 minus 3, which gives me 9/16. I can't simplify that or reduce it down any farther, so that's going to be my answer. Checking with my calculator, 3 fraction 4 minus 3 fraction 8 times 1 fraction 2, 1/2, gives me 9/16. And then we get to the next ones where we're still doing our order of operations with fractions. Only maybe they make them a little bit trickier, I'm not sure. So, parentheses, exponents, multiplying and dividing, adding and subtracting from left to right. So, again, we have no parentheses or exponents. We're going to do the multiplying and dividing. In this case, we have a dividing. We have to remember that when we divide fractions, we have to invert and multiply. So we multiply by the reciprocal. And so we're going to actually do 5/6 times 5/3 then. 5/6 times 5/3 gives me 25 over 18. And so I have 4/9 plus 25 over 18. I'm going to rewrite that a little bigger. 4/9 was in front, plus 25 over 18. I then have to find my common denominator in order to add those fractions. Since 9 goes into 18, 18 is my least common multiple, my common denominator. 9 goes into 18 2 times. 4 times 2 is 8. 18 goes into 18 once. 1 times 25 is still 25. So I have to do 8 plus 25, which gives me 33/18. Now 33 and 18 can be reduced because they're both divisible by 3. So I got to go ahead and simplify my fraction. 33 divided by 3 is 11. 18 divided by 3 is 6. Now I can't simplify it any farther, so 11/6 is going to be my answer. Again, if I go ahead and check with my calculator, 4 fraction ninths plus 5 fraction sixths divided by 3 fraction 5. I get 1 and 5/6. Remember, your calculator gives you the mixed number. I have to do shift and the fraction button. Now my calculator shows the 11/6, which is how I want my answer. So number 14, if I'm going to do that one following my order of operations, it has parentheses. I have to do the subtraction inside my parentheses first. Since I'm subtracting fractions, I have to have a common denominator, which in this case is going to be 20. 4 goes into 20 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. Minus 5 goes into 20 4 times. 4 times 2 is 8. So 15 minus 8 is going to give me 7/20 divided by 2/3. 7/20 divided by 2/3, I have a division. Since I'm dividing, I have to invert and multiply. So I'm going to do 7/20 times the reciprocal, 3/2. I can't reduce the 7 and the 2. I can't reduce the 3 and the 20, so I just go ahead and multiply. 7 times 3 is 21. 20 times 2 is 40. I can't reduce that fraction, so 21/40 should be my answer in simplest form. I'm then going to check my answer. Parentheses. 3 fraction 4 minus 2 fraction 5. Close my parenthesis, divided by 2 fraction 3 equals, and my calculator gives me 21/40, so I know I have the right answer. Go ahead and do number 15 here while I move the board and adjust some spacing. So number 15, following my order of operations, I don't have parentheses or exponents. I have to do multiplying and dividing from left to right, so here I have a division. If I'm going to divide fractions, I have to invert and multiply. So 1/2 times 7/6. Can't reduce the 1 and the 6, can't reduce the 2 and the 7, so I multiply across the top and across the bottom. 7/12. Plus the 1/3 that's on the end. I'm adding fractions next. I have to have a common denominator. My common denominator is going to be 12. 12 goes into 12 1 times 7 is 7, plus 3 goes into 12 4 times. 4 times 1 is 4. 7 plus 4 then gives me 11/12 for my answer. Again, if I check that with my calculator, 1 divided by 2, or 1 fraction 2, I should say, 1 fraction 2 divided by 6 fraction 7 plus 1 fraction 3 equals 11/12. That's the end of those ones, at least, with our order of operations. We are now going to do some things with the number line. In this case, we are doing the fractional position of a number on a number line. So the first thing you want to do is figure out here, where is B? Now, if B is between the 0 and the 1, it's just going to be a regular fraction. If B is past the numbers, I'm going to have a mixed number. So in this case, B is past the number 1. It's going to be 1 and something. I have to figure out how many or what the units are that each of my spaces are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count the spaces, not the dots, the spaces between 0 and 1. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. That means each of those little dots is a fourth. So here's my 1. This would be 1 and 1/4, 1 and 2/4. So I have 1 and 2/4. Of course, we want our answer in simplified form. 2/4 can be reduced down, so 1 and 1/2 would be our answer. You can see that B is halfway between the 1 and the 2, 1 1/2. Now, if I look at number 17, the C is before the 1. So I'm not going to have a whole number in front. I'm just going to have a fraction. I'm going to count my spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 spaces between the 0 and the 1. That means each of them are fifths. This would be 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5. And then, of course, 5/5 would be where the number 1 is. So 4/5 is where C is located. While I'm moving the board, go ahead and find the location for F. So number 18 there, we're looking where F is. We can see that the F is between the 2 and the 3, so we know it's going to be 2 and something. So again, I'm going to look, my spaces between 0 and 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces between 0 and 1. So 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 6, 5, 6, 6, 6 would be 1. So here I have 2 and 1/6, 2/6, 3/6. Again on this one, 3/6 can be simplified. 3/6 can be reduced down to 1/2, so I get 2 1/2. Again, hopefully you can see that F is halfway between the 2 and the 3, so it's at 2 1/2. Number 19, we are plotting integers on our number line. An integer is just a fancy name for a whole number, right? 6 is a whole number, -8, +12. Now technically whole numbers really are only the positive numbers, and so that's why they use the term integer, because integer tells me I can have positive and negative numbers as well as 0. So whole numbers really are only positive. Integers could be positive, negative, or 0. That's why they use integer. Plotting 6. 6 is a positive number, means I'm going to start at 0 and go 6 places to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? -8, since it's negative, I'm going to start at 0 and go 8 places to the left. -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8. 12 is positive. I'm going to go 12 places to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And there's my dot. You're just going to have to put the dots on the number line when you do it on Alex, but I thought I'd label them. Number 20, plotting my integers on my number line. So +4, 4 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. -8. Now really we could count 8, but we know that we can jump to -5, then do -6, -7, -8. Unless you want to count all 8 of them. Same thing with 12. We know that 12 is past 10. So 5, 10, 11, 12. Go ahead, number 21, plot your integers there on your number line. So number 21, if I'm going to plot 7, jump to 5, 6, 7. Should be right there. -12, I'm going to jump to -10, -11, -12. Should be right here. and negative 2, starting at 0, negative 1, negative 2. 2 places to the left of 0. The last ones, oops, I gotta move my board a little bit again. The last ones are plotting rational numbers on a number line. A rational number is a fancy word for fractions. We have other things that are rational, but usually when they use the term rational numbers in a description, they're talking about something that has fractions in it. So, same kind of thing. I first want to figure out what units my denominator should be in. So I'm going to count from 0 to 1 how many spaces, not how many marks, how many spaces. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. So I want my denominators to be in fourths. They are here, so I'm good to go. If I'm going to do negative 1 and 1/4, I'm going to go to negative 1 and then 1/4 to the left since it's negative. And so negative 1 and 1/4 would be right here on my number line. If I'm doing 7/4, it's positive, so I'm just going to count 7/4. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, 7/4. Right there would be my 7/4. Now if I had a really big numerator and I didn't want to have to count that many things, what I could do is change that to a mixed number. If I divide 4 into 7, it goes in there once, and then if I subtract, 7 minus 4 is 3, so 3/4. So I could have started at 0, jumped to the 1, and then 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and you can see my dot ends up in the same spot. Now if I do number 23, I'm going to count again how many spaces are between 0 and 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. I want my denominators to be in fourths. Here it is, but here it is not. Negative 1 and 1/2, I need to write with a denominator of fourths, so I make that equivalent fraction. 2 goes into 4, 2 times 1 is 2. So negative 1 and 2/4 is the same thing as negative 1/2. So now I can plot that. Negative 1 and 1/4, 2/4. You can see ends up halfway between the negative 2 and the negative 1. The 2 and 1/4 I can just go ahead and do, hop over to 2, do 1/4 to the right past that, so there's my 2 and 1/4. So while I go ahead and adjust my board, you go ahead and do number 24 on your paper. So number 24, if I look at that, again checking to see what denominators I want in my fractions, I'm going to count the spaces between 0 and 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I want a denominator of 6. The first one, negative 1 and 1/6, has a denominator of 6, so I can plot that. Negative 1 and 1/6 more than that. My 8/3. 8/3, we want to have a denominator of 6. So we're going to make our equivalent fraction. 3 goes into 6 2 times. 2 times 8 is 16. So I could count 16 places. 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 6, 5, 6, 6, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Way over here. If you don't want to have to count all the way to 16, which you can do, to make it easier, we could make the mixed number. 6 divides into 16 2 whole times, which is 12. We have 4 left over, so 4/6 is how far we want to go beyond the 2. So if I jumped over to 2, 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 6, and I end up in the exact same spot. So it doesn't matter if you want to count to 16, you can, but if you want to change it into the mixed number, don't reduce your fraction, just change it to the mixed number, then you can plot it that way also. that is the end there of homework day 7.